I hope you're doing great today. I am doing phenomenal because I have seen a movie that is so delightful, whimsical, funny, clever, incredibly original and creative. And I'm excited to talk to the two filmmakers who did everything. Let's talk to the women behind The Planters. Welcome to the Film Scrap Podcast. I am Chris Gore. I'm excited today to talk to the filmmakers behind The Planters. That's Hannah Leader, Alexandra, Kotcheff. Thank you so much for talking to us on the Film Scrap Podcast today. We made it. We did it. We're talking about your movie.
Yay.
This film is so delightful, visually striking.
Yay. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, I know. Oh my gosh. So it's just like, I first of all, I can't believe when I learned effectively the two of you did everything. And when I mean everything, you both star in the film, you co-wrote it and really just filmed it yourselves with no crew. I mean, this is something I think that this is a movie that certainly could have been made during our lockdown or whatnot. Tell me what brought the two of you together to make this film, The Planters.
Well, Alexandra.
Well, we always wanted to do something together, but we actually wrote a film previous to this called Peachville, and we knew no one was going to give us the money without a proof of concept or some form of something that we could show them that we could direct together. So we decided to run out into the desert and make a short film, and that short film turned into The Planters. And 127 days of shooting later, we had a feature film.
Hannah, what's it like for you to work, collaboratively in such a, I mean, this is sort of the height of collaboration in terms of filmmaking. You're responsible for, virtually every aspect of the filmmaking here. So that certainly must present some challenges.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of the less is more approach. And I think with that, I think in ways it was extremely challenging and difficult in testing of endurance and all of that, and having to wear all the hats, and from makeup to cinematography, to sound, props. But I think there was also so much freedom with the limitations. We were isolated and had so much room to really get lost in the creative process and play make-believe together as adults. And I think that was, in the way that there was two sides to that coin, where it was harder, but I think in ways it was maybe easier to just drop in, because we were literally living in the desert for so long together, and just in it,
Well, it had to be somewhat liberating in the sense that, you're not there's not an assistant director yelling to make the day, right? Like that's, if you've been on those kind of film sets. But what really also struck me about the film was the visually, every aspect of it is so sumptuous, from the backgrounds to the wardrobe to even the props. How did you both curate the look of the film? It's so, I mean, in addition to, being co-writers and directors, you could also production design movies, clearly.
Thank you. I think that it just fit really well within our general aesthetic as a team. We didn't really have to think too hard about it. It's strange. We didn't have to sit down and okay, this is the look we're going for. These are the costumes we're going to do. It's just, we absolutely intuitively knew the vibe, the timeless vibe, energy that we were trying to create, however grounded in reality. And that led us into many thrift shops and Goodwills to go adventure treasure hunting.
Well, I mean, thrift shops are a big part of the film too, the story of the film. There's a particular great antique and thrift shop in Pasadena at the Paseo Mall. I just say this for anyone who's watching or listening to this that is in the area. That place is incredible. There's all sorts of collections there, but tell me about that being a big part of the movie, because I just thought that was such a fun aspect.
The thrift store.
Yeah.
Well, it is a character in the film. It's the place where Martha steals her beloved treasures that she plants in the ground. I think what's we love about it is it feels. I mean, that set, which was what it was, and we just went in there during the night to shoot in that store. It was so cluttered and claustrophobic, but warm. And, we had the store clerk who just never sees anyone in there. He's always playing his solitaire. He's another lonely person. He doesn't see anyone until, well, I'm not going to give it away. But I mean, I don't know if that answers the question, but it was definitely a place to continue to explore these themes of kind of loneliness. But also, secret passion that Martha has for her planting, and a place for people to, Martha ends up bringing her motley crew there with her, and then it becomes more of a communal place. So.
You mentioned loneliness, and I kind of feel like with I don't know what day we are in our lockdown life, but the movie does really tap into that sense of isolation. I mean, not just from story elements, but also visually, it does. And I felt like the movie really struck me on an emotional level, maybe more than it would have if we haven't been through all of this. So I'm curious how audiences have reacted to the film when they've seen it. I know that it was. I don't know if you had an opportunity to screen it to a physical audience before the lockdown, but can you talk a little bit about audience reaction to the movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we were able to. We had a great festival run. We started at Rain Dance, and then awesome.
And
I think we froze for a second.
Oh, you did?
So we did. We had the incredible experience before all the madness hit. We went to Rain Dance, Nashville, Austin Film Festival, AFI, and a couple other festivals. And that was we always imagined our film to be seen with a crowd because of the kind of almost watching it with other people gives you this permission to laugh maybe and enjoy the weirdness and in community. So it was really beautiful to be able to see that. People seemed more laughs than we were expecting in the communal theatrical settings. And it's so interesting with the timing of things because it does feel like, very appropriate for the times that we're in now. And I think what's been great, despite how difficult this time has been, is to see that people are still watching it alone and able to have that same level of joy and warmth just sitting at home. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it does strike a different chord because people have been in isolation more than they have ever, having to go in and out of these lockdowns and just, being very isolated and lonely. And so, yeah, I think it's been interesting to see the different range and that it does still play from.
Yeah, I'm glad that audiences responded with laughs because it immediately drew me in with that. There's sort of a whimsical weirdness, for lack of a better term, that just permeates throughout the film. And God, this is the movie that I hope people discover, right? Like it's and you did root it in something of a timelessness, because it's hard to determine like what era the film was made, and I don't even know that that's all that important, you know. Like it has that kind of timelessness. Yeah, what in terms of how the two of you work together, you seem to be, I mean, just in speaking to you and even before we got on the call, and we had some technical problems, but you know, hey, that's 2020 for you. But like, you seem to work together so well. Like you both seem so right on the same page when it comes to just every aspect. I mean, can you talk about how you work together and that collaboration? So we might
see if she can hear.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay.
how we work together.
Yeah.
Well, we're really lucky because we've known each other since we were 8 years old.
That explains it.
I feel like that gave us a real leg up in terms of working so closely. We've coexisted since we were little, and I also think there's a weird spiritual or like some kind of element about it where we just formed in the same pot almost. Like we found each other. We're so lucky to find each other as little kids, and we have a special friendship and working relationship. And so, yeah, translating to that to like 127 days of shooting without anyone else around except the other actors at times. You know, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, that we couldn't have, it already took so long to get it done that if our kind of working relationship had any, if we were arguing all the time, we wouldn't have gotten it done. So I think that there was a knowing about that, but also just that we're lucky that we're pretty compatible. So, yeah.
And tell me about how, in terms of production, the two of you, it was really just the two of you making this movie. That's it. It was in many of the scenes you acted in, you ran camera, you did everything. So I don't think I've ever heard of this type of film. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I mean, people do that in TikTok videos, but not feature independent films. So can you tell me about that? Like, Hannah, you can go first, then Alexandra, I'd love to hear from you on this. But yeah, in terms of that, like, production method, it certainly netted good results. So
yeah, it started as a wild hair idea, to just, let's go make our first feature film. We had already written a feature film, but we needed a lot of money for that one. And we're like, how are we gonna raise this money? We don't even have anything we've shot together. So let's go shoot a proof of concept. Oh, well, let's just go shoot it. Let's just go take this equipment we have access to, because at the time Alexandra was working on a documentary. And we just went out to the desert with like 15 pages of a script. And what we found there is that we needed a full script, but that we actually could shoot this alone. And really what that looked like was getting up every day, doing our own hair and makeup, setting up the sound equipment and the camera equipment, which luckily we had used this camera before on that documentary. So we were very familiar with the Canon C300, and also the sound equipment. And it just, you know, you can see the film was quite still. We were on a tripod most of the time because we were in almost all of the frames. That was also an aesthetic choice, but it was a half aesthetic, half limitations. You know, the one thing we always say is, you know, we can't believe we didn't invest in a monitor. We were working off of this like 3-inch monitor that was attached to the Canon C300. And like we'd flip it around and run into the shot and just like try and see from far away. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ladybug. Alexandra, excuse me, that's our secret little code name.
Well, your secret's out. I think Alexandra's having some technical issues, but I just want to impress upon the audience here what an amazing, delightful film this is, The Planters, which is currently available on video on demand on all platforms. So seek it out. Check out The Planters trailer. Look that up on YouTube. I really want to thank you, Hannah Leader, Alexandra, Kotcheff. Thank you. Alexandra, I will help you with your internet at some point. But if I will say, if our technical issues are the worst thing that happened in 2020, it's a good year. But thank you so much for being. Thank you so much for being on the Film Threat podcast. I appreciate it. Seek out this film, The Planters. And I also want to thank our sponsor, Storyblocks. Go to storyblocks.com/film threat. All sorts of tools for independent filmmakers. Thank you again. And I cannot wait to see what you do next, because if this is what you're doing with limitations, what you could do with a real budget is going to be striking. And I hope that other producers recognize this, because really this movie, The Planters, is a gem. It's a find. And I thank you for talking to me on the Film Threat podcast.
Thanks so much, Chris.